The story of Adrien and Mara. The sun had climbed high over the city, casting a harsh, merciless light over its narrow alleyways, revealing everything that the night tried to hide. And in one forgotten corner between two crumbling brick buildings, a moment was unfolding that would change an entire city's heartbeat. Adrien Mercer, a man known everywhere for his wealth, power, and immaculate public image, stepped out of his sleek black car after weeks abroad. He had expected a warm homecoming, a familiar smile, a gentle hug, the quiet comfort of the woman he loved. Instead, he found her abandoned on the cold alley pavement, blood on her forehead, her clothes torn, her hands trembling as she clutched a small bundle of belongings. His wife, Mara, once full of light and laughter, looked up at him with eyes that were hollow and terrified, as if the world had swallowed her whole and spit her out broken. Before his mind could even comprehend the horror, his heart had already shattered. And in that moment, the most feared, admired, and untouchable millionaire in the city made a decision that no one could have predicted. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner right now. It helps us reach more hearts. Adrien had always believed that his success protected the people he loved. He thought being powerful meant his world was safe. That danger only belonged to strangers in stories no one remembered. But seeing Mara on the filthy ground beneath the unforgiving daylight proved how wrong he was. Her skin was bruised, her arms scraped, her hair tangled, and her breath short and uneven. She wasn't just hurt. She was abandoned like someone whose worth had been stolen. He rushed to her, lifting her gently, feeling her weight not just in his arms, but on his soul. She was conscious, but only barely, and she leaned into him as if clinging to the last piece of a world she could trust. At that moment, Adrien realized wealth meant nothing. What mattered was the broken woman he loved, the truth behind her suffering, and the justice she deserved. He took her home, ignoring the shocked glances from his staff, ignoring every business call that lit up his phone. The city could wait. Money could wait. Meetings could crumble. Nothing mattered except Mara's trembling breaths and the haunting silence in her eyes. A doctor examined her discreetly, confirming she had been attacked and left behind. It wasn't random, it was deliberate. And as Adrien listened, fury rose inside him like a storm. But beneath that storm was something heavier: guilt. He wondered how long Mara had been suffering silently while he believed life was perfect. He wondered how many messages from her he may have missed while drowning himself in work. He wondered if she had reached out for help and found no one. These thoughts tore him apart, each one sharper than the last. As Mara rested in a warm room under soft daylight, Adrien sat outside her door, staring at the floor, feeling as though the foundations of his life had cracked open. He had known hardship once, long before he built his empire back when he was a young man with nothing but determination. But he had never imagined that suffering would return like this through the person he held closest to his heart. His house was usually filled with polished surfaces, orderly routine, and quiet efficiency. Now it felt like a cold palace, useless, empty, and disconnected from the real world, where pain didn't care about wealth or status. The contrast broke him further. Days passed, and Mara slowly regained strength. But her silence was the heaviest part of the room. She didn't cry, she didn't argue, she didn't ask why. She simply existed in a numb state, like someone trying to learn how to breathe again. But one afternoon, under the gentle glow of daytime filtering through the curtains, She finally whispered to Adrien what had happened. She had gone out to help a struggling neighbor, a woman who had been forced into the streets with her child. Mara had always cared deeply about others. Her heart was her greatest treasure. But that day, a group of men had cornered her, taken her belongings, hurt her, and left her in that alley to be forgotten. Adrien listened without moving, without looking away, his expression frozen between devastation and rage. That moment lit a fire inside him, not of revenge, but of unbreakable resolve. Instead of hiding the incident or protecting his image, Adrien did something that shocked the entire city. He brought Mara's story to the public, using the full weight of his influence to expose the hidden violence that so many suffered in silence. He went live on every major network in broad daylight, standing beside his recovering wife, speaking not with anger, but with unfiltered pain and honesty. He admitted his failures as a husband, his ignorance, and his misplaced priorities. He called out the cruelty that had been allowed to grow in the city shadows, challenging those in power, urging the community to stand with him in rebuilding safety, compassion, and protection for the vulnerable. His raw truthfulness struck the city like lightning. People who had once seen him only as a distant billionaire now saw a man who risked his reputation to defend someone he loved and to confront an injustice larger than himself. The city shifted. Organizations reached out, volunteers multiplied, safe shelters were built, and street patrol programs began forming overnight. Adrien funded them not as charity, but as a promise to his wife and to every person who had ever been abandoned or overlooked. And gradually, Mara began to heal, not just from her injuries, but from the fear that had gripped her since the attack. She saw the world changing because of her story, saw strangers rallying behind kindness rather than cruelty. She saw Adrien stepping into them, and she always believed he could be. Their days became quieter, but filled with purpose. They spent mornings visiting shelters, afternoons helping families, evenings holding each other closer than they had in years. The pain had not vanished, but it had transformed into something powerful, a mission. Adrien's transformation shocked the city not because of his wealth, but because he chose humanity over pride, vulnerability over image, and love over silence. He rebuilt not just programs and charities, but the emotional bridges within his own marriage and the community around him. And as time passed, Mara's laughter returned, soft but genuine, like sunlight breaking through after a long storm. And in the end, standing on a small stage at a daytime charity event dedicated to victims of violence, Adrien looked at the crowd, thousands of people united, and felt something he had never experienced in all his years of success: true purpose. Their lives had changed forever, not because of tragedy, but because they refused to let the tragedy define them. Your support helps spread more real, emotional, and inspiring stories. Before we end, tell us in the comments what part of this story moved you the most.